I never planned to make a point that morning. I just wanted to get through breakfast without another argument, without another look that told me I was smaller than I used to be. The kitchen smelled like toast and coffee, the kind of normal that's supposed to calm you down, but my hands were shaking anyway. There was a bruise under my sleeve, not obvious unless you knew where to look. He knew. He always knew. And as he sat down across from me scrolling on his phone like nothing in the world had happened, I realized something simple and terrifying at the same time. This was the day everything either stayed the same forever or finally changed. From the outside, my life looked fine. Suburban street, neat house, decent job. People told me I was lucky, and I smiled like I agreed. My husband, Evan Collins, was the kind of guy people trusted right away. Good handshake, easy laugh, always talking about how hard he worked. If he ever raised his voice in public, it was to tell a joke. At home, it was different. Not loud at first, just precise. Corrections disguised as concern. Questions that felt like jokes until you answered them wrong. It started small. Why are you home so late? Why do you need that? Let me handle it. Over time, my world shrank without me noticing. I stopped seeing friends as often. Stopped arguing back because it never led anywhere good. Silence became easier. You know what I mean? You tell yourself you're being mature, that every marriage has its stuff. You learn how to read moods the way other people read weather forecasts. The night before that breakfast, something in him snapped. It wasn't a big fight. It never was. Just one comment too many. One moment where I didn't respond the way he wanted. His hand came out of nowhere. Not dramatic, not movie style, just fast, shocking corrective. He froze like he couldn't believe he'd done it, then the apologies poured out. Stress. Work. I pushed him. Anyone would have reacted. I nodded because nodding was how I survived. That morning he acted like nothing had happened. That hurt more than the bruise. He told me to be normal. I poured his coffee, set the plate down, and felt something settle in my chest. Calm. Clear. Dangerous in a good way. Under the plate, barely visible, was a folded envelope. He didn't see it. He never saw things until it was too late. I wasn't always like this. Quiet. Careful. Before Evan, I was the loud one. The girl who argued with teachers and laughed too hard at the wrong moments. Somewhere along the way, I'd learned to disappear. Sitting there watching him eat, I thought, wow, he really believes I'm stuck. That belief was his mistake. Later that day, when he left for work, the house felt different. Lighter, but exposed like the walls were listening. I didn't cry. I didn't pack a suitcase. I sat at the table and went over everything in my head like I was studying for an exam. Dates, words, patterns. I didn't call it abuse yet. I called it evidence. I took photos of the bruise from every angle. Saved them somewhere he couldn't access. I gathered a few essentials I'd been quietly setting aside for months. Cash, ID, charger, nothing dramatic, just enough to move if I had to. Then I texted my friend Maya. One line. "Are you around today?" She replied in seconds. Always. When Evan came home that night, he noticed the bruise more clearly. His face tightened, not with guilt, but calculation. "People will talk," he said. I told him I'd seen a doctor. That was the first crack. He didn't yell. He went quiet, which was worse. Quiet meant he was adjusting the rules. 2 days later, I checked my bank account on my lunch break. 0. Clean sweep. My phone buzzed right after. "We need to talk." I closed the app and took a breath. I'd known this was coming. Control always escalates when it starts slipping. That evening, he had paperwork waiting on the table. Separation, he said, like it was a favor. No lawyers, no mess. Just sign, and we can keep this private. I scanned the pages. They would have left me with nothing. No money, no leverage. He smiled like he'd already won. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't explain. I just said no. That was the moment he really saw me. Not scared. Not begging. Just done. He slammed his hand on the table, told me I didn't understand how the world worked. I stood up and told him I understood it perfectly. I wasn't signing anything. The room felt electric. For a second, I thought he might hit me again. Then he remembered the bruise. the doctor, the risk. He backed off furious. I didn't leave that night. I left the next one. Quietly, with my keys and my phone and my heart pounding so loud I thought it might give me away. I went to Maya's place. She didn't ask questions. She just handed me a blanket and said, "You're safe here." The calls started immediately. Angry at first, then softer, then almost desperate. I didn't answer. I saved everything. When he showed up outside Maya's apartment breaking the order I'd just filed for, I called the police. My hands were steady when I did it, which surprised me. The officers documented everything. That violation mattered. It turned my story into a record. The hearing was fast. I spoke only when asked. I stuck to facts. The judge listened. When the order was granted, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt anchored, like the ground had finally stopped shifting under my feet. Evan didn't stop. He tried to control the narrative instead. Told mutual friends I was unstable. Reached out to my workplace with fake concern. Each move backfired. HR documented. My supervisor backed me. People started noticing patterns he couldn't hide anymore. The money trail came next. Turns out, moving funds around leaves fingerprints. His job put him on leave. Then, investigation. He called me from numbers I didn't recognize, his voice tight and shaking, accusing me of ruining his life. I listened once. Then I saved it and never listened again. The final confrontation happened in public, which was fitting. A charity event he loved. His stage. I went with Maya and my attorney not to make a scene, just to exist. When he saw me calm and steady, something in him cracked. He tried to confront me, hissed that I'd planned everything. I told him quietly that he'd planned it himself. People were watching. Phones came out. Security stepped in. He was served papers right there in the room he used to own. I walked out without looking back. Outside, the air felt different, cooler, real. I realized I wasn't shaking anymore. After that, things ended the way systems always end them. Slowly, methodically. Accounts frozen. Job terminated. Settlement signed. No dramatic speech, just consequences stacking up where excuses used to be. I moved into a small apartment with sunlight and silence that didn't feel dangerous. I cooked for myself, slept through the night. At work, I stopped apologizing for existing. People treated me like someone who knew what she was doing, because I did. Here's the part that still messes with me. Strength didn't look the way I thought it would. It wasn't loud. It wasn't revenge. It was patience. Documentation. Saying no without explaining myself. Letting the truth do the work instead of trying to force it. If you're listening to this and something feels familiar, sit with that. Ask yourself where you're being quiet. Is it because you're weak, or because you're preparing? And if you've ever watched someone be dismissed, minimized, written off, think about how easy it is to get it wrong from the outside. I want to know what you think. Was I right to wait? Was silence strategy or surrender? Where do you draw the line between patience and enabling? Drop your thoughts in the comments, argue with me if you want, tell your own story if you're ready. And if you believe stories like this matter, subscribe and stick around. Sometimes the quietest people aren't losing, they're just choosing their moment.